one of the things that has happened in the last 25 years has been the advent of basically conservative media. We've known and figured out now that basically it was a case that the liberal media owned our sources of information. And the first breakthrough, probably the biggest guy, Rush Limbaugh, all of a sudden created a brand new sub-industry within the radio and has influenced people like you cannot believe. I will tell you, one of the reasons that I came to know that I was really interested. I always felt that, okay, I hear these levels, and I know what it is. I was sitting right in my clothes as a sophomore, and would have that headset on. The radio station was next door, and I'd listen to this guy by Rush Limbaugh. The more he talked, the more I went, yeah, I could be saying that same thing. Yeah, I understand that I feel the same way. So that's the kind of thing that ignited it. So how does that fit into the book?
Oh, well, Rush Limbaugh, of course he's in the book. He is, he's actually the only host that has a whole chapter on to himself because he was so instrumental in building this industry. And so many people, they stand on his shoulders, but at the same time, what he did really vitalize this industry. He stands on the shoulders of a lot of other people, going back a while, Bob Grant, Barry Farber, some of those really big names that are out there. And I write about all these guys in this book, The Right Frequency, in which two of the people I interviewed, Bob Grant, Barry Farber. Bob Grant, interesting enough, was really big in the Northeast. He's known for being a New York host, as Rush Limbaugh became known for being affiliated with WABC. Grant started out in California, much the same way Rush Limbaugh started out with the Sacramento show, and moved on to New York. Rush, one interesting anecdote I have in here is
Fred, I'm going to ask you to hold for just a second. We have a couple of folks from my home state, New Hampshire, the law firms just passing by, and I just wanted to take a minute to say, guys, why don't you come on back afterwards and sit down and we'll have a yak, because it's something that I always enjoy talking with Di and Chuck Lothrop, who just walked by. They are also here at Americans for Prosperity, defending the American dream.
There you go.
Absolutely. We'll be here.
Well, very good. All right, thank you. Had to do that, Fred. Sorry.
Right, not a problem at all.
When folks who support you show up, you have to do at least a little bit of a shout.
Absolutely. What I was going to say, in a lot of ways, Rush Limbaugh fulfilled the American entrepreneurial spirit. People said that at that level,
because they
Rush wanted to take a political talk radio show too. It couldn't be done. One of the big New York station managers told him, "You're kidding yourself if you think we'll ever air your national show." Which of course they did, and like so many stations all across America do today. And an industry within an industry was born, as you said, after that. But this book, The Right Frequency, it goes back and looks at some other folks as well, all the way back to the 30s and 40s. Walter Winchell. Not necessarily.
That's a name I recognize.
Not necessarily a conservative, because he was a diehard FDR supporter, but he went on to become a diehard Joe McCarthy supporter. So he's sort of swayed a couple different ways there, and on the political realm. One guy that has largely been forgotten, I think, but at one point during the 40s and 50s, he had perhaps as big a following, big an audience size, and almost as much influence over the conservative movement as Rush Limbaugh, and that was Fulton Lewis Jr. He had a huge audience size. Richard Nixon, actually, after being nominated for vice president at the 1952 Republican convention, told Lewis, "If not for you, Fulton, this never would have happened." So, another guy I write about in here, and a lot of people have heard about Father Charles Coughlin, but so much of what they heard about him is wrong, because he's been referred to as this right-wing radio priest. Yeah, well,
he owned the marketplace. He did, back in the 20s and 30s.
He did, and but people said he is the forerunner of Rush Limbaugh, going back. Maybe market size, but he was no conservative. He had called for the end of capitalism, he had said that he tried to put this religious fervor behind FDR at one point during the election in 1932, saying the New Deal was Christ's deal. But he viciously turned against FDR midway through the first term, largely because FDR wasn't going far enough in Father Coughlin's view. And so from that perspective, he calling Coughlin a right-winger would almost be calling Michael Moore a right-wing filmmaker, just because Michael Moore turned against Obama on several issues.
Well, certainly there's a lot of history I don't think that people know about. By the way, Fred, Jane Cormier is running for the future House. I'm going to ask her to sit down with us because she's a first-time runner, and I think this is part of the stuff that she needs to know. So Jane, you can pick up a headset right there. You can listen to us talk. One of the things that I think spurred on conservative subgenre was Reagan getting rid of the fairness doctrine. And for those of you who are watching and listening, the fairness doctrine, and correct me if I'm wrong, basically came down to we're not going to air anybody because it's too much of a hassle for our station to put anybody.
That was an unintended consequence.
Well, government's really good at that. The law, violating the law of unintended consequences. Basically, it said if you have somebody on for half an hour that's a liberal, you have half an hour on for somebody who's a conservative. They didn't mind putting the liberal on. They weren't too swift with getting the conservative. And when under Reagan, when that blew away, that blew out the
that changed the political landscape really, because it gave conservatives who were largely silenced, gave them a voice, and broke up the liberal media monopoly. I'm glad you brought the fairness doctrine up. The Right Frequency has 2 chapters on the fairness doctrine, actually. One chapter is called Challenge and Harass. And it was actually, there was a challenge and harass was how an LBJ official with the Democratic National Committee described their strategy. It was the DNC would orchestrate FCC complaints against stations that were carrying conservative commentators the president and the Democrats did not like, and they would just make it so costly and so burdensome that in most cases they were very successful in getting these hosts taken off the air, particularly in small and mid-level radio markets. And the other chapter on the fairness doctrine I titled Renaissance, because that's really when we tore down that wall. And I interviewed Reagan's FCC chairman, Mark Fowler, and it was a fascinating interview. He walked me through how they just really dismantled this, how they were getting the public behind them. What was interesting is a lot of conservative commentators at the time, Phil Schlafly, Pat Buchanan, some other folks, were worried about taking down the fairness doctrine. They said, what are you doing here? And, the media is liberal enough. The fairness doctrine is the only thing that gives us even a slight chance. The irony there, I think, is that conservatives were underestimating the power of the free market, because once you got rid of the fairness doctrine, once you tore that wall down, people voted on the radio dial and they voted conservative.
Now we're starting to see that come back. Democrats, especially in the House, are always talking about, well, we ought to institute the fairness doctrine because they know what happened once it was relieved. The question I have for you, though, is that now we're seeing almost a de facto fairness doctrine trying to be put into place by liberals who are trying to advertisers or conservative talkers that they disagree.
Right. Yeah, you see Media Matters leading the charge on this. Of course, we had this
color whole change by being
Right, exactly. And they were somewhat successful against Glenn Beck and the Fox News show. Glenn Beck's doing okay for himself.
Yeah, the words from the trilogy of The Hobbit come back to me. Gandalf says, "If you strike me down, I will come back twice as powerful." And that seems to have happened.
Yeah, it seems that GBTV is doing well, and his ratings on radio are doing just fine, as they always have been. He's One thing in the right frequency, in the first and last chapter of the book, we get into Glenn Beck's influence, and I even kind of compare him to Rush Limbaugh, whether he is the next Rush Limbaugh, whether he's not there quite with the ratings, but in terms of influence and really galvanizing, getting people together, he's almost there with Rush.
Well, let me ask you this. The future of radio. I look at it from a technological standpoint and say, everybody's going to smartphones. Everything is getting to the people through social media, on the phone, on tablets. Is it a case that radio might go away because everybody is broadcasting data? That will allow everybody to get to anything they want, filter right down the field into some genres and specialty areas. Well, I only wanted to talk about what we just had Leslie Hunter with the Freedom Foundation, and she's the education specialist. Could there really be the ability to have just a wide download? Well, I'm an audience of 1,300. There's a solid audience that will allow that. And everybody switches to the smartphone, radio, over-the-air radio starts to go away.
Well, yes and no. I think people had predicted the death of radio when television came in. So I mean, there's been that long running. But I think at the same time, media is adapting, and successful media, the ones that will be around, will learn to adapt, will know how to adapt to smartphones. And I think you're going to see Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity, those guys are going to move to have special options. Are going to compete with each other to see who can handle this transition the best, and see who can offer the best programming and the best all-around tweets and information out there.
Yes, competition. A liberal's worst nightmare.
Yeah, right. They don't like that.
No,
which is what the fairness doctrine was all about. They want everything to be equal, or just not have it at all.
Well, essentially, that's what it was. I think that certainly conservative radio has done an awful lot for the conservative radio. Not have had much of a chance in certain outlets, sort of like Fox News. Something else was. Well, they just captured. They just decided to reach out to that part of the marketplace that was underserved, like 50%.
Right. Yeah, I think. You mentioned Fox News. I think Fox News might not have. It would have eventually, because there was clearly a market demand for that, but it might not have come around as quickly had talk radio not proven that there was a commercially viable model. And talk radio has its footprint on history. Talk radio led in a lot of ways it led the Clinton impeachment. In 1994, Republican Revolution was called the Limbaugh Congress by a lot of people. They led the fight in California to get Gray Davis recalled. Those things were all started by talk radio. And the right frequency is filled with things. Just this week, we were talking about multimedia platforms, but talk radio host, Mike Huckabee in particular, used social media, but he's a radio host and a TV host, used social media, as did other talk radio show hosts, to get the Chick-fil-A ball running. And we had that huge, massive turnout. I ate lunch at Chick-fil-A on Wednesday and stood in line for about 45 minutes to get a chicken sandwich, but it was a pretty amazing day.
Well, yeah, it's I listened to it all the way down from the Hilton as I drove down, which means I got to drive back. And it was amazing to listen to the lines that were on a video that's gone viral. We have it on Granite Grok. Adam Smith, who is the CFO of Tucson, and he thought he was just going to be super cool. He was going to record himself driving up to the drive-up window of a Chick-fil-A restaurant and talk smack to the poor girl. And I will call her girl. I'm old enough to do that. The poor girl who just happens to have a job there. Oh, it must taste so much better with all that you eat. And that kind of rant. By the end of the day, the company said, bye. Because I went to confirm the story. I wanted to call the company. The service crashed. So, and that got reported first by a radio station out in Tucson, and the video was found. In fact, it was Paul Westcott, WGIR 610 PM, Manchester. For the United States' largest city, sent me the link, set it up, and put it up, and yeah, it's on. And several of our commenters said cross marketplace. There's the power of, once again, the power of radio. Wait a minute, something's going on, and then social media picked it up. So in that case, two accounts. Fred, I'm going to ask for a favor. This sounds like a very interesting thing. I would like to have you back on once one of us watched it, have had the chance to actually read it, so we can ask intelligent questions. It's always hard to do an interview about a book you've never read.
Right. Okay.
Which is one of the problems of people wandering by and going, oh, that looks interesting. That's an open seat. Right. But this has been an interesting talk, and I want to say thank you very much for coming by. And yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to get a copy of this book. Either read it myself or put it into somebody who can read it for us. Do a book review on Granite Rock and have you back.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'll have the publisher send one to you. Yeah, that sounds great.
Very good. Well, listen, folks, we're going to take another little break here because we have Jane Cormier, who is running for the New Hampshire House as a first-time candidate. We did put up several of the interview questions that we had with her. We've got more to put up, but she's here in Washington, D.C. with Americans for Prosperity, so we're going to take a short break as we switch things around here, but we will be back with you in just a few minutes.
Crop TV.